Hey guys, Rob from the Off-Grid Tiny House, bringing you back another video on making the medicine. So I found in my last video that the medicine I made wasn't powerful enough and wasn't infused very well. So this time I added, you can see here, some bigger flowers and more flowers, obviously. So what I'm doing here is just breaking them up by hand a little bit, trying to destem them, get rid of any loose leaves, anything like that. Just breaking everything down in this little stainless steel dish. And then beside me we have just an average everyday slow cooker. You guys can find them at the thrift store used for very cheap, or just go out and buy them. I know, with the holidays coming up, there's a lot of good sales and stuff going on out there. So next here in the video, guys, I'm taking the coconut oil that I infused in my last video, and I put them in these little containers that I will be reusing. I always reuse these containers over and over again, and I got these at the local Dollar Tree here. So basically, I'm just using all the coconut oil that was infused in a bunch of these little containers and re-adding it or adding it to this dish to re-infuse it in a little better method. Now, I have a bunch of videos coming, guys, showing all kinds of different little methods to do it. This is not the best method to do it. I'm just showing you what I did in case of a boo-boo, where you can reinfuse again and again if you need be, if you make a little mistake and doesn't seem to be very potent or whatever. So basically, here I'm just going to add on the rest of the coconut oil to the dish, and then coming up, we're going to throw some about 2 cups of water in the slow cooker, and then 2 cups is plenty. Later on in the video, I did have to take some of the water out, but around 2 cups to 1.5 cups in the slow cooker. I just set the dish down in there, and basically all I'm doing is warming the dish up to liquefy this coconut oil that I'm adding to the bowl. And once that's all said and done, I let that cook and infuse on low heat for quite a while. Now, this is only part 1 of this video section, like I said. You can totally skip this part because, or this method basically you can skip, because I have another video coming up, and it's basically I fine-tune everything down to a science and get it a lot easier, a lot less time consuming, on and on and on. So we'll get to it here in a bit, and I'll show you what's next. Alrighty guys, so you can see that the coconut oil is starting to liquefy here. Um, it's semi-floating in the water, so I did end up taking out a little bit of water out of the pressure, or not the pressure cooker, but the slow cooker. I do have it on high here just to speed up the process, which is fine. So once this liquefies, basically I ended up putting a lid on this thing because I didn't have a small enough glass jar, a mason jar at the time to do this properly. But I again remedied that in my coming video that you guys will see with a much better method of doing this. But basically, here we go. We dropped her down to low, and I have the lid on here, as you can tell, and the lid on the slow cooker as well to keep that heat in there. And coming up in the next video clip shortly, you're gonna see it. It has changed color, and now it looks like an olive oil, and it's gonna be coming up here just shortly, guys. Hold on a second, and here we go, the big reveal. So what I do next is I take this stuff in my next video, and you can completely skip this step, like I said, but I'll show you what happens next to this in the coming video. And stay tuned for that. So you want to subscribe and follow to follow up on this project. Hey guys, Rob from the Oxford Tiny House. So here we're looking at the stuff from my last video, the coconut infusion with the buds here. I used high THC indica, and in this next portion of the video that's coming up here shortly, I'm going to show you the proper way to infuse this stuff, the way I prefer, and the way I made RSO as well with what we call the blender method. So here we go. We're going to be showing here in the next clip. I took this stuff, I threw it in my NutriBullet blender, and this is what we got on the afterwards. I actually got more than what's shown in that one. It's because I put the rest inside the slow cooker in this mason jar, which I was able to find that fit my slow cooker perfectly. So I just have it on low and use the NutriBullet to chop all that stuff up. And coming up here next, I got these off of Amazon. These are for a coffee press. They're stainless steel, and what I did was I altered one so the hole in the center there's no longer a hole there. It's going to filter out any of the particles I have. So after infusing that mason jar full of coconut oil and the buds into a nice concentrate. So here we go. I'm carefully going to pour over top the screens, the stainless steel screens that I got off of Amazon. And they do a really great job of filtering out any fine particles. I layered them because they came in a 4-pack, and I did, like I said earlier, I took one and cut it with scissors to fill the hole in the center because they're made for a coffee press of some kind. Alrighty, so just getting everything out of the jar that I possibly can. Now here is the other awesome thing about the stainless steel filtering screen coming up here shortly. Basically what you want to do is fold it up like a taco, and that will squeeze the plant material or botanicals, whatever you want to call them, and really get all the oils out of them and into your jar while still filtering. if you do this taco method, just be careful not to dump a side out into your medicine container, into your concentrate. You want to keep it nice and filtered. So, and you just squeeze along, and with these stainless steel filters or screens, they will try to keep the same shape as what you squeeze them. So they'll try to they'll unfold a tad, and then the nice thing about here, I'm showing it, the plant material is pretty much dry after that. Now you see, and I'm making quite a mess, and I'm not wearing gloves. And I'll tell you one thing, guys. I paid for that later on because my skin absorbed the high potency concentrate, and I was higher than a kite for like 5 to 6 hours, just by getting this stuff on my hands during the processing. So if you don't want that to happen to you, I suggest wearing some type of glove or gloves. I just got some cheap Dollar Tree plastic gloves that I picked up for this. But as you see, I got it everywhere on my hands, on the table. You know, you can be a lot more careful than I was for sure. Alrighty, so next, you guys know I still have some other concentrate that I blended up in my other NutriBullet container. So I'm going to bring that over here. And we're going to throw that back in the mason jar. And you notice I threw the plant material back in the mason jar as well from the first purge here. And I just do that just in case I need to wash the botanicals or plant material more than once. There it is there in the NutriBullet. So I'm going to pour that into the mason jar carefully. And then we're going to process that yet again in the slow cooker. Obviously my hands are slippery from the oil, so I'm trying to do this with my t-shirt behind the scenes, opening that NutriBullet jar. And I'm going to remove the concentrate off the table because, yeah, don't want to dump that after doing all that work, right, guys? Definitely not. All right. So I'm still monkeying around behind the scenes now. And here we go. So we're going to pour everything in, even all the plant material, because we still have to infuse that for a few hours for sure, so we get everything out of that plant material concentrated into the coconut oil. And you know, just do your best. Try not to spill too much. All right, so just carefully put the lid on, cap it, make sure it's nice and snug. And then this is going to be placed into the slow cooker. And the slow cooker has about 2 cups of water sitting in it. And you only need to run it on low, the lowest setting, guys. And you just cover the lid and set it and forget it for a couple hours. What I did for my particular ordeal was I would run it for 2 hours, shut the heat off for an hour, turn the heat on for another 2 hours, and shut the heat off, and just let it all sit in there and slowly marinate. Here we go. We have our concentrate here. So it's ready to go. We're going to filter it out the same way you guys just saw me do for the first batch there. So this is secondary batch, and you can see my screens have kind of held a taco formation, as when you squeeze them they will do that. Alrighty, so I got to carefully, again behind the scenes, since my hands are oily, carefully get the cap off and the top of the mason jar, and then carefully put it through this stainless steel strainer on top of our jar here. Excuse me. So, this is going to get awfully messy, and like I recommended earlier, gloves, guys, because I paid for that the first time when not wearing gloves. So I bust out some Dollar Tree one size fits all disposable gloves. You can get a whole whack ton of these for $1.25 locally at my local Dollar Tree, so that's what I did. I got all the plastic containers there for this as well, which you'll see later at the end of the video. They come in all different sizes there as well, so that's pretty nice. So as I'm monkeying around to get into the gloves, you can see the stainless steel is kind of has somewhat of a memory as when I went and folded it into the taco shape. So it'll do that, but you just leave it as is and do what you do. So here we go. Finally, we're going to carefully pour this through the strainer. And I learned to let it kind of run down the end of the glass. You'll see it. You'll see that right there. I run it down the end of the glass that way. That way I don't lose any that flies off the backside. So I just carefully pour it in through the bottom of the glass. So it's running down the side of the glass to the bottom to get inside the container here, because the mason jar does not have a beak on it, as you see the container I'm pouring into does. And that's what I prefer. That way you have full control of where the liquid's going and wants to go. So this is kind of a tedious, slow process. Highly recommend gloves when making this stuff though, guys, because especially if you're not used to taking any of this stuff, you get that first whack of a dose that hits you later on unexpectedly. Now, it's a lot because it's a concentrate, high THC, so you'll be flying high, sometimes too high. And I was flying a little too high, so not fun. That's why I'm making, you see all my concentrates going into one container, and I'll kind of explain that later in the video, because there's a method to the madness for this. Alrighty, so continuing to slowly pour this stuff in. Now you can see the difference of the liquid. So the liquid I'm pouring in is real dark looking. Now the coconut oil is semi hardened on the bottom of the portion of this container I'm pouring it into on top of it. As you can see, the liquid's staying on top because the coconut oil is semi-hardened in the bottom half, and that's the color of it. Looks like looks like an olive oil. That's like almost an olive oil butter look to it, right? So here we go. We're slowly getting the plant material into the fine screen, and this is, you gotta be careful, guys, because you don't want to lose any inside, because then you'll have to refilter the whole bottom container if you do get any in there. Or if you're just lazy and don't want to, you can do that as well, but you really don't want to end up having that issue. Not really. You want a nice smooth salve. I'm making this as a salve, but you can also eat this stuff. Totally edible. It's just organic coconut oil infused with the medicine. So no issues there. Alright, so now this is a lot of plant material for this screen, but I was able to, strain it no problem. Now you could space it out, clear, do part of it, squeeze it through, and then discard it, and then do the other part. But I ended up just doing it all in one go, because I figured, well, I think I have enough space here to handle that. No biggie. So I just put the mason jar down, and now I have to be very careful when I fold the screens into a taco yet again, because I have quite a lot of plant material, but the material size will definitely go down because I'm going to be squeezing a lot of oil and liquid out of these plant material, and you'll see the size come come down quite a bit by the end of this process. So I'm just taking my time. Looks like a little burrito type deal. Just squeezing all the liquid oil out of there that's been infused. Just taking my time. That's all you gotta do. You gotta be pretty patient when making this stuff. I know my work's a little messy, but I don't lose a whole lot. And anything I did lose, I did get on my hands. The best way to clean it up is using dry paper towels. They super absorb it, and that's the best way I found to clean it up. And for the glassware, the best way to do it is when you're done finally at the end of the day, you just use really hot water, and it will remove all the oil from all your glass containers. Just be careful you're not going to burn yourself. I have a little makeshift garden hose that I have attached to a laundry sink that I use, and it comes in very handy for all my little projects. So I just use that to blast out my slow cooker, all my glassware at the end of the day, and all that. So here I am squeezing some more, squeezing a little more vigorously, heavily, get all the good stuff out of that medicine. Now, if you're really stingy, you can do this multiple times. Like, try to infuse all this plant material one or two more times in another set of brand new coconut oil, just to see if you can possibly get any more out of it. But from my workings with the stuff, normally twice is all you need to do for your infusion, especially when you're at the beginning, you're blending it in a blender. You're breaking down all the molecules, so there's a ton of surface area in there to infuse to. It cuts down on the infusion time, the heat, basically the boiling time where the infusion takes place, because it's just got tons of particles and everything to absorb on. Now I discard these gloves and I get fresh ones because I'm going to be dealing with another batch of that concentrate there. And I switch from a measuring cup that's Pyrex and to this beaker that's Pyrex as well, so they can handle the high temperatures without breaking, and that's the kind of glassware you're looking for this kind of setup. All right, so there's our jar of concentrate there. And what I'm doing here is I have some concentrate that I made a long time ago, a few months back. That is a 1-to-1 THC CBD ratio, and I'm going to combine it and pour it. I moved all my concentrate into this bigger glass container you see here, because obviously was running out of room for all of it. So I'm making a giant concentrate of the coconut oil infused with the same amount of buds, but I added in the 1-to-1 ratio of that older stuff. So here we are at the slow cooker. I'm just regulating the temps between high and low just to finish off melting the rest of this coconut oil down to a liquid. And then I'm going to transfer and pour it carefully into the large concentrate jar and go from there. There's a lot of steps, but I'll kind of explain a little later in another video why the method of the madness here. I can do it now, actually, might as well. So I'm putting all these concentrates in one giant container, and then that way I don't have to continually do this process later on. I'm just going to use an empty mason jar and pour it full of this really massive concentrated stuff. Now you can use this right away, but it's super high. So what I like to do is I like to just throw it in separate jars. Okay, cap them, throw them in the fridge for a rainy day, and they will harden up in the glass container in the fridge. And when you want to make some more, you just go into these guys that are they basically turn into a paste once they're cooled and in a fridge. They turn back to the coconut oil texture where it's a paste. And then you can just take a certain amount and put it exactly where you want it, like in your another fresh batch of coconut oil. So I got a little bit left over, so I'm going to need a new jar. We're going to go ahead and fill that jar up as much as I can. And I'm going to leave a little bit left over in my main concentrate container because I'm going to use that to make today's salve. So you can see I got a little bit left over in there, and that's what I'm going to use to make the salve. Doesn't look like a whole lot, but it's strong stuff. So you can see how many salves you can make out of just a small amount of this stuff. A little goes a long way, guys, if you know what I'm talking about, because you don't want to get crazy high on this stuff. You just want a nice relax, takes care of any aches and pains, anything like that. Nice, puts you to a nice sleep, nice deep sleep. And so I have the Pyrex glass here, and I believe I'm just going to watch and tell you what happens next because, oh, here we go. Oh yeah, I transferred it into the Pyrex from the larger container into the smaller container because it's going to be a little bit more manageable for now, because what I plan on doing is then adding just pure organic coconut oil to that concentrate right in that container right there. So here I'm just going to scoop it in by hand, slap it in, fill that container right up to the 2-cup mark, and go from there. And then once I got this thing filled up, I'm going to throw it back in the hot water inside the slow cooker. By now it'll be just lukewarm water because I've had the lid off during this whole process. But the water does maintain its temp pretty good inside of there. And I just pack this thing to the very top, throw it in to the slow cooker, and go from there. Now you notice this isn't a mason jar, so we're not really doing an infusion process here really, because the infusion has already been done. I'm just going to liquefy this coconut oil. It's going to mix in with the concentrate down in the bottom there that you can see the green stuff. And it's going to, they call it tampering. Like if you're a moonshiner, you got to add water to your mixture so it's not so hot. Well, this is kind of what I'm doing here. And it allows you to make a whole ton of salve. So here we go. Carefully do this with my other hand. Put it in the center. The slow cooker still on high. So in this particular thing, I just put the lid right over top, and it just fits. So by the lid being there, when the steam happens inside, it doesn't go into my measuring cup. Very little does. The only moisture that may go in there is from the beak of the measuring cup, which is where you pour out the liquid. Only a few drops of water. It doesn't matter if you get a little bit of water in your mixture, not at all. So here's me just kind of getting things cleaned up. All right, so here we have the coconut oil that was cooked and mixed in with that concentrate. You can see it's kind of like a light, very light, extra virgin olive oil color. And I pour this then into these plastic containers that you're going to see shortly, and which I get from the Dollar Tree. So from all that, I made a whole whack ton of salves. And the salves, guys, you don't really use a whole lot. You can see in this one in particular that I'm going to hold eventually in front of the camera that I got some little particles in that one. That's not a big deal. I'll use that one for myself. The rest are fairly clear. And they will paste up once you put them in the fridge, and you just leave them out room temperature and use them as you see fit.